Welcome, everybody, to this satsang this Thursday evening during this season of Navaratri. And at this time of year, especially, it's a good time to be speaking about God in the aspect of Divine Mother, that approach that we take to God. And it sometimes can be as Father, it can be as friend, as beloved. But I think one of the sweetest ways to approach God is as the Divine Mother. And I know in our tradition, our Guru Paramahansa Yogananda especially was attuned to that aspect of God, God in the form of Divine Mother. Now, as most of you know, I was born in the West, in California, United States, and I grew up in a family that was not religious at all. And matter of fact, I would say they were a little bit anti-religious in the sense that it was not spoken of. I don't remember it as a child speaking of God at all in my household. It was a scientifically oriented family. And religion was somewhat looked down upon if it was thought about at all. And to me, that was natural. Growing up, I didn't know anything different. That was the environment I was in. Although I knew I did have friends who attended church and were religious families, but that wasn't something that was my heritage. But as I grew up, you begin to become curious. You begin to think for yourself after a period of time. You get to be a teenager and ideas begin to come and to you that were perhaps counter to what your family taught you. And this so happened also with me, and especially when I went off on my own to college. And of course, in college, we're exposed to a lot of different ideas and traditions. And just intuitively, I began to question that upbringing that I have. Not that I became religious, but you might say I became something of an agnostic. I didn't know, but I was curious. I thought, what is it that is motivating these religious traditions throughout the ages? I could see that history had shown this to be something that was common in all cultures, and great personages that still command respect were religious figures, and that religious movement changed society over the ages, and I began to question this, and I began to look at the earth and the life, and I began to see and sense that there was an interconnectedness of everything in life, and that there had to be something that was underneath this. And perhaps it was a certain desperation of thought that this world just can't be this hard material substance that we make it, and that this materialism, and is that it? Is that all? And I didn't know the answer, but certainly my heart intuitively was seeking something else. And so I began to study. Uh, I had my own major in college, but on the side, I began to look into these things, and I began to read and I began to study. And this was before I came across the autobiography of a yogi. And by my senior year in college, I started to read the lives of great saints throughout the ages. And I was led to a biography of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, the great saint from Kolkata. And I read his biography, and there was a passage in there, a story in there that had a tremendous impact upon me. It really was quite powerful. And I want to read this story to you because it moved me, and I could tell the story, but I think it's written so nicely that and succinctly, I thought I'd read it. And this is by one of his disciples, Swami Sarananda, and he tells the story of the Saint Totapuri. Now, this story resonated me because I identified with Totapuri. Not with Ramakrishna. I identified with, and we know that Totapuri was a great yogi, but of the Jnanic type, and so I resonated with that. And so the story, let me read this, and it goes: about this time, Totapuri was suddenly laid up with a severe attack of dysentery. You see, he was living in the ashram and visiting Ramakrishna and stayed there for some time. On account of the miserable illness he found, it impossible to meditate. One night, the pain became excruciating. He could no longer concentrate on Brahman. The body stood in the way. He became incensed with its demands. A free soul, he did not at all care for the body, so he determined to drown it in the Ganges. Thereupon he walked into the river, but lo, he walks to the other bank. So, is there not enough water in the Ganges? Standing dumbfounded on the other bank, he looks back across the water. He's looking back at the Dakshineswar temple. The trees, the temples, the houses are silhouetted against the sky. Suddenly, in one dazzling moment, he sees on all sides the presence of the Divine Mother. She is everything. She is in everything. She is in the water. She is on the land. She is the body. She is the mind. She is pain. She is comfort. She is knowledge. She is ignorance. She is life. She is death. She is everything that one sees, hears, or imagines. She turns yea into nay, and nay into yea. Without her grace, no embodied being could go beyond her realm. Man has no free will. He is not even free to die. Yet again, beyond the body and mind, she resides in her transcendental, absolute aspect. She is the Brahman that Totapuri had been worshiping all his life. Now, as he has this vision, he then goes back to the temple and he spends the rest of the night meditating on the Divine Mother, to whom he had somewhat rejected and dissuaded or tried to dissuade Ramakrishna from worshiping. But he came to understand in that moment that grace that was given to him, perhaps by Ramakrishna, given to him to see that all is God and all is the Divine Mother. And I read that story and I was profoundly moved because somehow it intuitively spoke to me that God is everything and it's everything as the Divine Mother. And it was from that inspiration that I carried with me after that when I thought about God and I began to think of the Divine Mother. And then I was led to the autobiography of Yogi and I read the autobiography of Yogi and I saw that there, Paramahansa Yogananda, Guru, he saw God in the same way. He saw God as the Divine Mother. And in that, I was immediately understood and I was attracted. It was one of the things that drew me particularly to Master, is the way that I felt that he and I, you might say, and I very much the minor partner, saw life in a way that I could understand as the Divine Mother. And here we are at this time of year, Navaratri, we worship God as the Divine Mother. And here we have Durga Puja, and Durga Puja, of course, is based on the story of Mahishasura, who she destroys and she kills with her trident. And in those early days, before I'd come upon these teachings, I would have thought of this as this is idolatry, or these are sort of stories. And I looked at them strictly from the outside. But when we begin to worship God in this way, and we begin to see that everything is the Divine Mother, we begin to see the symbolism in here. And so Ashura is that negative side, that bestial side of us, that lower nature of ourselves, and we begin to see that Durga represents that higher self, and we destroy even in ourselves. In our process toward self-realization, toward reaching out to God, the higher self destroys and kills the lower self. And I see it even, I began to understand it because she hits the demon with her trident, and that trident represents symbolic of the three worlds that are embodied. It represents power over the three worlds, and it's also, as a Kriya Yogi, that trident represents the breath, the three channels, the nerve channels of the breath, which when we gain control over that, we too have the power to overcome darkness within ourselves. And so at this time of Navaratri, we worship that. We recognize that. We bring that out. And especially at this time of year, in our meditations, concentrate upon the Divine Mother, that as we started with the chant, that light that is within us, that light to the divine, come out of the darkness, Mother. And I'd like to conclude and hand this over to Nayaswami Dhyana with one story that favorite, you might say, of many people who tell stories of the Divine Mother, Ram Prasad. There's a story that Swami Kriyananda used to tell about him. It's a famous one, that Ram Prasad was out working in the fields one day and he was repairing a fence, and he was singing, as he would always do. Ram Prasad would sing to the Divine Mother, and he was singing to the Divine Mother when his daughter comes out into the field, from the village, comes out to visit him, be with him out in the field. And she says, Papa, what are you singing? And he says, oh, child, I'm singing to my Divine Mother. But she is a naughty mother because she never answers me. And his daughter says, well, Papa, why do you keep singing to her if she never answers? And she laughs, and then she skips away and goes away back to the village. And at that evening, he goes home. Ram Prasad goes home and asks his wife tells the story of his yes, the daughter came out today. It was very nice. She came, and this is what she said. And wife looks at him and says, what are you talking about? She didn't come out there. She was on the other side of the village the whole day. And he says, no, she was there. She came with me. He says, no, sir. She was at the other side of the village. I was at her. And they called the daughter. And she says, no, Papa, I was not out there. I was at the other side of the village. And you see, the Divine Mother came in that form. And it's something to remember. We call to God as the Divine Mother, and we think she doesn't respond. But God hears all of our prayers. And oftentimes we find that the Divine Mother does come, but we have to open our eyes. And to the degree that we can see, our prayers are answered, and everything. The Divine Mother is in everything. She is everything. And she speaks to us through all of the events that take place in our daily life. So look upon life. Look upon the activities that take place during the day. See within that, it's the Divine Mother speaking to you. And your part of the equation is to sing to her and call her to come out of that darkness, reveal herself, reveal yourself to me. God bless all of you.
Good evening and welcome. It's such a joy to be here to greet you all and to share this very special time of celebrating, of honoring the Divine Mother. I'd like to start with a brief reading of words of Swami Kriyananda Ji about the Divine Mother. We need to understand that Divine Mother is not a separate thing or person, but is the feminine aspect of God. There's really only one reality, the infinite consciousness that has produced all the different manifestations we see. But there can be different expressions of the divine that appeal to people according to their own natures. What part does Divine Mother play in this? She gives us a form towards which we can direct our love. Master he prayed to the Divine Mother and Swamiji as well, and in many of our chants and many of our our prayers, we say, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother. It's so sweet because this aspect of God is compassion, it's love, it's joy, openness, receptivity. And when I was growing up, we, different from Jayaji, we were very religious in our family, and we were Christian Baptists, and we would every Sunday we went to the morning Sunday school as children. We went to the midday church service. We went to the afternoon church. We went to the night church. We went all the time to church, and I really enjoyed that time. But I have to say, it was a bit frightening because we were so afraid that if we did anything wrong, that we would be in trouble because we worship the father aspect of God, the disciplinarian part, and you felt guilty or you were living in fear all the time. And it reminds me of the story of Master who was on a train once, and this he must have been dressed in a way that this man, he knew he was not a Christian, shall we say. And so his man walked back and forth on the train, and then he looks at Master and he says, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ?" And Master said, "Yes, I believe in Jesus Christ." "Do you believe Jesus Christ is the only Savior?" And Master said, "Yes, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're going to go to hell." And Master said, "Well, my friend, I might go there by and by, but you're there already." And isn't that so, that so many people go through life, religious or spiritual, and they're afraid of God? And it was so comforting to come to Master's teachings and hear his chants and hear him speak of the sweetness and how God loves us and how Divine Mother's the nearest of the dear and the dearest of the dear, and how she knows our every thoughts and our every feelings, even though she keeps this cosmos going, that she knows you individually. And how refreshing to think of God in that way. And Master had he lost his mother, as you all know, and at an early age, but Divine Mother came to comfort him as he searched for his mother uh, in his dreams and his thoughts and his heart and his prayers. And then Divine Mother, she came to him in a vision, and she said, "It was I who was behind your earthly mother in all incarnations." And we have to realize it's her who's behind our loved ones, behind our spouse, behind our mother, our father, our friend, our guru bhais, our beloved, who's in the earth, in the wind, in the sun, and everything is the Divine Mother who's trying to reach us and trying to draw our love to her. That all she wants, Master said, she wants nothing but our love. And Guruji had a vision of the Divine Mother also at a Christmas meditation one year, an 8-hour Christmas meditation. And he spoke to her. His side of the conversation, the devotees could hear. He wanted them to hear that you can talk to God. And he was saying over and over, "Oh, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful." And then at a certain point, he said, "Don't go, please don't go." And he said, "The material desires of these people are pushing you away. Oh, don't go." And this is what we have to remember, that she's trying to come to us. She wants to come. And I was thinking of all the beautiful stories of the children who saw the face of the Divine Mother in one form or another, little children who had visions of the Divine Mother in Medjugorje, Garabandal, Lourdes, and Fatima. Repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over, they saw the face of the Divine Mother. And so for each of us at this time of celebrating and honoring the Divine Mother, we have to remember that it's really inside. Sure, We can offer our devotion outwardly, but I think so many people forget that she's really inside of ourselves and that we can talk to her. Swamiji told several stories in his own life where he spoke to the Divine Mother and that she answered him in beautiful ways. And many of you know the stories. I can't go into them in detail tonight, but the story of Carmel when he went on a vacation with the Divine Mother and he didn't need to pay for his hotel that stay or his lunch that next day. And also when he was in Calcutta and he had just landed there. This was many in the early days, and he was there, and whoever was picking him up didn't arrive on time at the airport. And Swamiji said he just stopped and he said, "Divine Mother, what do you have in mind?" He lived with her, he spoke with her, he felt her presence. And near the end of Swamiji's life, many of you heard his lectures, he could barely talk for the love that he felt for God and that aspect of sweetness of mother. And that final story I'll tell is when Swamiji was about to give a lecture, a Sunday satsang at Ananda meditation retreat. And he said he had a kidney stone attack and it was so bad he just couldn't hardly move. And and then finally the time was getting closer and closer and he wanted to give the satsang, but he was in so much pain and he didn't want to pray for himself. But he said, "Divine Mother, if you want me to give the satsang, you're going to have to take this pain away." And we heard Swamiji tell this story many times. And the last time I heard him tell it, he said it was like this, that quickly, that the pain was gone and it was replaced with so much joy. And he said, even so, I went to give the satsang. I still really couldn't speak because of the bliss that I felt from Divine Mother. And so through our prayers, through japa, through our chanting, through wanting to live every day in the presence of Divine Mother, let us remember that she's always there. And Master said, when he found God, he asked Divine Mother, he said, "Why didn't you come sooner? I prayed so long, so many years." And she said, "There were just a few desires left, but now those are gone." And so as we put aside the desires and open our hearts to God and this beautiful aspect of the Mother, we will feel a closeness with the Divine Mother. I like to close with some words when Swamiji had words come to him from the Divine Mother, and he spoke them to the Ananda community. He said, this is what he said, "Divine Mother has asked me to convey these words to you." This was at an 8-hour Christmas meditation. "I am very pleased with all of you. I am very pleased with what you are doing. But don't live in littleness and petty things, little thoughts, little worries, little ambitions. Live for me, for my love. I am your mother through all eternity. Nothing else matters. You were born to commune with me. For no other reason were you born. Live in my consciousness. Everything else is dust. I know all your thoughts. Your devotion is very pleasing to me. You are my children. You are all very dear to me. Live more in me. Live in my love. Yes, build a community, but in the sense of communion with me. My children, I am always with you. I am just behind your thoughts, just behind your feelings. I am with you every second. Let no other thought come between me and thee. Let's meditate now a few minutes. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll have